Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you all here today for this session on generative AI for good. So I'm Kashalia Ganatalaka, and I head partnerships and community at Bob AI. So what we do at Bob is we invest and support AI scale-up companies. And to date, we have a portfolio that includes 20 AI companies and an aggregated company value of over 365 billion. So that's just a little bit about us, but I want to introduce you to our fantastic speakers today. So we've got Dr. Katrina Wallace. Hi, Kat. How are you going?
Hey, Cash. I'm great, thanks.
That's good. So I know a lot of you probably already know Dr. Katrina Wallace. And for many of you in Australia, you have heard that she is one of the sharks, or actually one of the dolphins, on the Shark Tank series for this year. Kat is also the chair of Boab AI, and she's also the founder of the Responsible Metaverse Alliance, amongst many other things. So I could sit here all day talking about what you do, Kate, but that's just a bit about Kat. So welcome, Kat, to joining us today. And then we've got Prem as well. Prem, who a few of you would have known as well, just from previous sessions as well. Prem is the founder and CEO of Katonic.ai, where they're helping businesses build powerful AI applications in minutes with their non-coding Katonic generative AI platform. So welcome, Prem.
Thank you, Cash. My pleasure, and thank you, Katrina. Pleasure to meet you, and I'm looking forward to this talk. Quite excited.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, why don't I kick this off and start with a question that's very general, but I think it's one that it's good to just talk about. And Prem, I might pass this one over to you. So for a lot of those that are still learning about the space, could you just run through what generative AI is and what is the excitement about generative AI? Why is it there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, generative AI, a lot of them are comparing it with the internet moment or the iPhone moment or the Windows moment. I completely agree with them. And I'll tell you why there's so much of excitement. So, look, AI has been there from a while, right? In fact, I know people who actually graduated or did masters in AI 30 years back, right? Maybe more than that. But then if you see, the journey of AI, the initial few years, like say about 20 years back, it was more about looking at how AI can help, take away like the repetitive task humans were doing. Then it evolved more towards machine learning, where we were looking at how machine learning or AI can help augment human decisioning. But machine learning required a lot of data. It required a lot of data scientists labeled data. And training, it was quite labor intensive, it was time intensive, it was data intensive, but it was valuable, but it was expensive affairs. Only large companies could afford that, right? Then came deep learning, which took away a lot of pain around featureization and a lot of data. But still, you had to build a model. You had to train and things like that. And the biggest advantage now with generative AI. So generative AI. So I'll come to generative AI. So firstly, generative AI is a model which can generate new content, and it is usually trained on huge amount of data, or old data, right? And that data can be text, that can be image, that can be video, it can be any kinds of data, right? And it's called a foundation model. So when you take a model and train it with humongous amount of data, it becomes a foundation model, and it has the ability to generate new content. And now with very little fine tuning or tweaking through prompts and other techniques, you can use the same model to do multiple tasks, right? So you can make the model do extraction, you can do a question and answer. All of you are aware of chat gpt. You can do a classification of an email, and you can do a lot more. And the benefit now is that earlier you had to build one model per task, and if you had to build a model, you had to identify data, you need a data scientist, you need an MLOps platform or a platform. It used to take a long time, but now with generative AI, with foundation models, right, you can now use the same model, and organizations can get a lot of value, and you can benefit from it. So that's why there's so much of excitement, because it really puts AI into hands of everyone. And this time the AI is about making people more productive, right? So last time it was more about helping humans take better decision through predictive analytics, forecasting, but it's more making productive. In fact, there's a survey which says 40% of human working hours will be impacted by generative AI, and it can collectively bring in 40%, make humans 40% more productive. And in 2 years, the way we can't live without internet, we will not be able to live without these foundation models. I cannot. I use it every day, and I'm sure with the way it's going, it will be a norm. So yeah, that's the excitement, and I'm glad that we as an organization are helping enterprises and small and medium businesses get value out of it. So a little bit long, but I think it helps understand the context and the journey and why there's so much excitement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Prem, and that helps us form this whole discussion. So, as well as generative AI, there's a lot of debate in regards to generative AI and the responsible use of it and the ethics of it. Kat, I know you're very much an advocate for making sure there's responsible use of AI and the ethics. I'd love to get your thoughts on this and what this debate is about.
Yes, well, certainly the world has changed forever since November last year when OpenAI came to market with its beta test of ChatGPT. And now we've seen a lot of other companies, including most of the tech giants, stepping in with their version of generative AI that Prem has just explained. Now, the challenge with this is that currently today there exists almost no rules, regulations, laws, legislation to govern or to regulate or control AI. And the closest we've got is really in the EU. There is a draft AI regulation, which is based on looking at the risks that AI poses and then putting regulation around that. But it's had to go back to the drawing board because generative AI came, and so it now needs to be adopted. We're also seeing China starting to look at regulation, particularly for things such as recommendation algorithms. So there is attempt to regulate this huge, fast-growing field, but as yet there is really nothing other than perhaps the existing regulations and legislation that sit with people like the e-Safety Commissioner and the Human Rights Commissioner, although usually still not specifically referring to AI. So really what we have, why the ethical debate is here, and it's here, Cash, from everything from how do we make sure that generative AI isn't used to harm children, right through to some of the leaders in the world announcing that AI poses as much existential or catastrophic risk to humanity as pandemics or nuclear war pose, which I also agree with. So herein is the ethical debate. We've unleashed these big machines on the world, but with very little discussion prior to their release about how they're regulated or how they're used ethically. And the thing that kind of concerns me is we've got people like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who released this product in November last year, and then within 6 months was in front of US Congress calling for regulation. So to me, it's powerful machines doing great work, but we yet don't know the risks and harms.
Yeah, that's great to just understand all about that. And I think we hear so much about it, but there's so much that we're hearing that we're not sure what to really focus on. So it's good that you're pointing all of this out, Kat, and there's still a lot of discussion that needs to be had. So Prem, as a scale-up that's utilizing generative AI, what are you doing as a company to help enterprises get their business value through generative AI, and how are you taking responsible AI into that as well?
Yeah, Kash and Kat, thanks for talking about the risks of generative AI, which I completely agree. I think it's with every technology. It's just that this technology is very powerful, that it can do a lot more harm than the previous ones, right? So if you look at the risks, right? So I think one of the biggest risk is that generative AI, there's a foundation model, and these foundation models are open source for anyone to consume, right? And compute is quite cheap, so there's a risk that someone can take those foundation models, use this compute, and might end up, harming. So while that's a risk, right, that's not something which we can really, as Katonic can do much, because that's more of a regulatory risk, and that's something which I'm assuming the governments of the world will take care of. We are, in the business of helping enterprises because, as the event's name says, generative AI for good. Our job is to see how generative AI, because this is like Kat said, it's a very interesting and very powerful technology, right? How can we use this for helping enterprises, become cheaper, faster, provide better services. So in the end, the consumers benefit, right? But at the same time, ensure that the governance around the corporate governance is adhered to, but also the law of the land is also adhered to, and that's where we bring in tools and capabilities for them to do that securely. So that's our job. So our job is to ensure enterprises don't get into trouble for using generative AI, and we give them a platform to do that, right? So yeah, so let me stop there. Let me see if you guys have any comment, and then maybe I can talk a little more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, Kat, I'd love to hear if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, I'm just thinking about how organizations like Katonic, the responsibility really that you have at this early stage of these types of large language models being released on the world, to where we don't have governments yet being able to put regulation or guidelines really in place. The responsibility that organizations like you have and leaders like you have to help your enterprise clients do this and do this well, and do it from day one, rather than trying to retrofit any ethics or responsibility in hindsight, which we know is almost impossible to do with technology. So that's why I'm encouraged having these conversations. And as we go forward on this chat today, love to hear more about the risks that you believe that young AI organizations like yourself can help enterprise solve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And risk and security has to be thought from day one. It's something you cannot, like you said, retrofit, and we do that. So what we can do is, so what I'll do is I'll probably break this into two parts. So firstly, I'll talk about, see, while we talk about generative AI, right, in the end, the enterprises can benefit from it. And what we've seen is that you can distill them down to just 8 key tasks which they can achieve, right? So the use cases can be many, but in the end, those are the 8 key tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably talk about how enterprises can benefit from AI, generative AI, going through those tasks, and then I'm going to talk about what should they be doing to ensure that generative AI can be useful for them, right, from a security perspective. Like how should they be looking at generative AI, and then we can talk about the various risks and how Katonic mitigates. And if there's time, maybe I can quickly show you a demo of building an application which kind of takes care of those risks. So if that's okay, I'll just quickly bring up a presentation and then do that. Is that all right, Kat Cash? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it. And yeah, Kat, it'll be good to get your feedback on that as well.
Great. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay, let me know if you're able to see the screen. All good?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. So yeah, so firstly, we talked about ChatGPT, we talked about generative AI and how powerful and how useful they are and how they can help 40% of the working hours get impacted. But then the reality is that most of the organizations have actually banned ChatGPT or similar applications, and the reason the banned is, and I think Kat mentioned few of that, is this data security, there's privacy, and there are many other challenges around copyright, bias, and things like that, right? So while that is the fact, the fact is also that organizations cannot ignore this, or the enterprises, be it small, medium, cannot ignore this technology. It is very powerful. It is going to make humans more productive, and for right reasons. It has been compared with the internet moment and the mobile moment. So while that's true, right? So if you look at Kat, like today, I think this is a very powerful and very key slide, because today, if you're an enterprise, or this just in general talks about generative AI landscape, right? So today you have companies like OpenAI, Midjourney, what they do is they've trained a large language, they've trained a foundation model. So by the way, I think I keep using the term foundation model and large language model. So foundation model is a model which is trained on humongous amount of data. It could be any kind of data. And large language model is a model which is trained on text, right, which understands language. So large language model is like a subset of foundation model. So today, if you see organizations like OpenAI, Google, they have created these foundation models, and they provide that as a service. So you can pay a few dollars and you can consume that. And ChatGPT is an example of that, right? So enterprises have an option to use that. We call it closed source because it is something, a proprietary product which they offer. Then there's open source. So Facebook recently open source Llama 2, which is very, very powerful, but that is just one of them. There's about over 1,400 of them, right? And we've taken a lot of popular open source models, foundation models, and we've created something called Katonic Playground, which is free for you to play around with, which we'll share the link with. And then, of course, if you have a lot of data and money, and if you have a right use case, say for example Bloomberg, and there were a few companies who built it from scratch, right? Now, doesn't matter what option you really choose, right? Doesn't matter. You go. You need a tech stack which you've never had before, right? To ensure that there's proper governance, there's proper, not just from a responsibility perspective, but also overall from availability, performance, and other non-functional requirement. And that's exactly what we offer, right? But then, for businesses, generative AI, a lot of businesses are still learning what generative AI can do for them, and we've been into this from a while now. And while chatbot is definitely one of a blockbuster application, there are many more powerful things you can do. And when I go through them, you'll also realize I'll also talk about the risks as well. Maybe I'll cover it again later. Some of these tasks are very low risk, right? So the first one is chatbot. And organizations can build AI assistants or chatbots, which they can open it up for either internal consumption or for their customers. And of course, there is a risk that the chatbot can behave differently, and that's where we offer a capability called grounded chatbots, or retrieval augmented generation, a technical word, where we use the power of the large language model, but we take the brain out and put the data of the organization. And that particular chatbot, which is able to talk and converse in English or any language 40 plus, knows only about that data, and you can get meaningful conversation. So chatbot is an application. Summarization, so a lot of times there's a large amount of documents. You can even have these call which is for 30 minutes. You can transcribe that and you can summarize. So there's a lot of use cases around summarization. So there we are using a large language capability of the model, so the risk is very low. Content generation, so this is where you use the generative capability. Yes, then there's a risk of copyright issue, and then there are few other risks which come up when you're looking at content. There's code assistance, again there's a copyright issue and things like that. Again, it can become a little high risk. So there's insight extraction, so you can extract information from large documents, you can classify documents, you can search documents, you can create recommendation engines. So we've actually enhanced this list to 10 tasks. So this is all there is to it, right? So when enterprises look at generative AI, they are actually looking at building one of those use cases or one of those tasks. So every use case boils down to those tasks, and the task automation or building the task is what gives you business value, right? Now, while the task is good and the foundation models are available, there are key 5 tenets in our view which enterprises should look at. And of course, responsible AI, security and governance is one of the most important. But also, just to help the enterprises understand what approach they should take in terms of generative AI, they need to firstly ensure that whatever they do is aligned with the business value, because technology means technology, and it means nothing. Either it is helping you increase revenue, reduce cost, or improve your customer experience. So any organization which is looking at doing anything in generative AI, be very clear on what business value you want to achieve, right? And of course, there's so much going on in the open source world, right? The community is thriving, it's evolving, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of open source tools will be available from a responsibility perspective. In fact, there are already tools available for bias monitoring and things like that. And what you want to be doing is you want to be having a platform which can help you bring this innovation very quickly, and you can start benefiting from that, right? That's very key. You don't want to be having a platform which is very close, that you're not able to get this innovation, be it in the open source or in the foundation world. And again, you want to have a platform which is infrastructure agnostic, and environmental impact is very high, and you don't want to be using infrastructure. You definitely want to use greener options. So your platform or whatever your strategy is should be infrastructure agnostic, and it should be foundation model or LLM agnostic, because we don't know who the winners are. There are people giving you cars for free, but their fuel is expensive. So LLMs are like fuels. So you need to ensure that you have a platform which gives you the ability to choose the right LLM for a particular task, so that you're not over engineering and unnecessarily consuming um, compute, which might impact the environment, right? And of course, you want to have security governance built in from day one, and the ability to fine tune and create specialized models, because there's a survey which says specialized models are more accurate, but also they're cheaper, but the environmental impact is also very low. And that's where Katonic comes in, just to give you a 2-minute overview of what we do, right, from a enterprise world. So we operate in all the layers. So we let organizations, firstly, Katonic lives on Kubernetes, so you can install Katonic wherever you like on your cloud, be it AWS, Azure, VMware, any Oracle, any cloud, any hardware on-prem. And what we let you do is we also give you a choice to bring your own foundation model, right? So we not only support the closed source, but we let you bring any of the open source one. We have a prompt studio where you can compare various LLMs and choose the right one. And of course, in few months we will be offering our own proprietary models as well. So that's on the foundation model layer. We offer a no-code platform, because what we realize is that the small and medium businesses and large enterprises, we want to put generative AI into hands of everyone. So we currently have HRs using it to kind of get insights from hundreds of resumes they get. We have lawyers using it. So we want to really democratize this and let anyone who can benefit from it build an application themselves, and that's where our no-code platform comes in. And hopefully, if I get time, we can do a demo. Otherwise, you can go to our website and have a look. And more importantly, this whole thing, we've been into the business from 3 years. This technology is new. We've actually built all this on top of our machine learning operations platform, for which we got various awards, including Frost & Sullivan MLOps Company of the Year award and few others. And that's the key. And I think, Kat, you talked about the governance, auditability, and that's what this layer brings in. And this really caters to the end-to-end thing for the platform. Now, talking about going back to the risks, right? Let's not forget, today's session is more responsible AI, and what are the risks and how do we mitigate that. So before I talk about the risks, if you see, you might read any report. You can read Gartner, you can read BCG, you can read any report. Everyone will give you a few insights, but everything distills down to these 5 different things. So if you're an enterprise or a company, these are the only 5 ways you can get value. There is no other way, right? People might use different terms, but this is it is. And so the first one is pretty straightforward. You just subscribe and use. So you have employees just paying for the APIs from ChatGPT, Midjourney, and start using it. There are use cases for that. So marketing departments who usually deal with publicly available information can use that. The risk is minimal. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And then the second one is essentially, instead of just using the generative AI capability of a closed source, you can actually build task-specific application. I did talk about, instead of doing a wholesale ban of ChatGPT or Bard or whatever, you can actually build task-specific applications using any of the LLMs, right? Could be open source, closed source. You build those applications depending on what's right for that particular application, and then you restrict that access to certain employees or certain departments. So that's consuming through guardrails, and that also has the auditability, so that who's doing it what, and then there's always a human feedback loop to bring it back to continuously improve that application, right? So there are risks associated to this. I'll talk about that in the next slide. So I'll first cover the 5 different options, and then I'll talk about how each of these options, which Katonic enables, covers what risks. And the third one is augmented. I talked about it using enterprise data. So you build a grounded chatbot, you build a grounded application which understands only that particular data, which is specific to the enterprise, and thereby taking away a lot of risk. And the next one is fine tuning, because many a times using an open source one and fine tuning an open source one is a lot cheaper, right? And also quite environmental friendly, rather than just consuming an OpenAI, because OpenAI can do everything for you, and sometimes you don't want You don't want to be, and you're paying for a capability which can do everything, and there is cost element as well. You don't want to be just using OpenAI. If you're doing a classification, you can just take one of the smaller models, fine tune it, and that's what we offer. And of course, you can build your own, right? So now, if I talk about the risk, right, and I just created this slide for easy consumption. So off the shelf is fine, right? I mean, you can. It's of course risky because you don't know what your employees are doing, and there's a big risk. And anyway, there's nothing. I'm going to comment on that. So when it comes to consuming with guardrails, right? So the biggest risk in any enterprise is shadow IT, where employees end up using one of these applications and uploading or doing a task which they're not supposed to, right? So by building an application on top of it and consuming through guardrails on Katonic, you are able to take care of the shadow IT impact, and also by restricting it to a certain task, and also by letting them build applications using the right sized LLM for certain tasks, you're also ensuring that there's optimization on cost and also the environmental effect. So for example, you might be classifying an email, and you might want to open a classifier to a call center employees who can save time by not going through the email, but kind of classify which is the right team. And you might use a small fine-tuned model and not decide to use an OpenAI. And of course, the environmental consumption impact is huge there. So that's what it does, the second option. The third option is definitely a blockbuster. We use the enterprise data. We use a technique called vector database. So there is LangChain and there's embeddings. There's a lot of technology which is like 2 or 3 months old we use. And what that does is this: it takes care of the data security and privacy. And if you remember, I said Katonic installs on customers' premises. So the data never leaves customers' premises. And because the data is sitting in vector databases, and that's augmenting the LLMs, and in some cases, the LLMs can be installed on in customers' premises. So you're taking care of data security, you're taking care of hallucination, because that particular LLM, which is kind of grounded to this data, cannot hallucinate. It will always give you fact. Copyright issue doesn't exist because it doesn't know anything beyond what you fed. And of course, bias is also taken care, right? So that's the augmented or retrieval augmented generation for you. Fine tuning, like I said, people will start fine tuning it. There are many reasons for that. Cost is one, but there are others, because now people are still, organizations are still trying to understand what they can do with generative AI. They're augmenting, they're building applications, but soon they'll fine tune, because in a year, this capability will be in the hands of everyone. And if your organization and if your models or the application don't speak your brand language, the customers will turn off, and there'll be no differentiator. And that's where you will fine tune large language models using your own data, so that you have that differentiator from your competitor. Otherwise, look, if everybody has access to this, there's no difference between A bank and B bank, and that's where fine tuning will become more and more popular. And fine tuning, of course, takes care of your data security issues, hallucination, copywriting issues, and of course, there's another event which I did, which I talked about. Specialized fine-tuned models are more accurate, but more cheaper, but more environmental friendly as well. And of course, train your own. Organizations will eventually start building their own. And what we have done is we use Kubernetes. So Kubernetes advantage is that it scales up and scales down depending on the demand. So when you're training your own, you want an infrastructure which scales up. We use shared GPU. We use some of the cutting edge frameworks called Ray. In fact, OpenAI was trained on Ray, and Ray is something which we have integrated as part of the platform. So we can help organizations, securely build their own. And but still few years away. Not everybody is going to, do this. It's not cheap and easy to do train your own. But yeah, we provide that capability. So this is how we make generative AI more affordable. And also secure and responsible by reducing some of the risks. So I think I know Kat, Cash, you've seen this, but I'm quite eager to hear comments from Kat. Really want to know what she thought about this capability which we bring in.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear as well from Kat.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks, Cash. And I think it was just interesting. So I've written down those risks, and I had another one. So shadow IT, environmental impact, data security and privacy, hallucinating machines, copyright infringement, biased output. And I had another one, which is just completely inaccurate output. So not only biased, but it can just actually get things wrong. So I think it's excellent what you've just presented about how a table, so how organizations can think about managing for those 7 risks and how they can start, because they're all extremely big risks. You don't want to fall down any of those risk holes. So I think it's super important for enterprises to be choosing partners to work beside in order to really overcome those risks. We also talked offline, Prem and Cash, about responsible AI and responsible generative AI being more than just overcoming the risks, having a governance framework set up, having monitoring, reviews, audits of the way the machines are working, the way the algorithms are working, the approach. So I think that's important to note. But Prem, is there any chance that you can give a quick demonstration of anything today?
Yes, definitely we can do that. So what I can do is in the next 10 minutes, we can show you how you build a, so I told you the Blockbuster is the augmented bot, right, on your data. So we can build one. We can even build an application on extraction and maybe a classifier as well. Well, responsible AI was the theme, but the other interesting thing about generative AI is if you can converse in English or in any language, you can actually build a AI model or generative AI model. You've taken it more seriously and taken it to the next step. So if you can converse in English or in any language, you can actually build an AI application for yourself and start making yourself, giving yourself free time, because it can do a lot of things which is either boring or unwanted, and it takes a lot of effort. So with that, I'll go ahead and do that. So before I build the chatbot, I'll just spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about how this magic really happens. Right, it's magical to take a piece of data and then build this bot. But for people who are interested in knowing under the hood, I'll not go so much in technical, but I'll just present a few slides which talks about that. So let's do it. Let's just bring it up here. Yeah, you can see my screen.
Yep, we can now.
Fantastic. So yeah, so we talked about the augmented AI chatbot with enterprise data. So the funny thing about large language models is that at least the open source ones and even the closed source ones, right, they are trained on humongous amount of data, but the data is publicly available, right? Which means that what they know about you have no control, and you don't know what they know is the right thing. And that's where I think we talked about hallucination, which is inaccurate or not factual data. So this is a big problem, and this is where, like I said, large language models are good at language, but because they don't understand your business, they end up hallucinating, and that's a big risk. And that's where we come in. And under the hood, I'll skip this slide, but come to the next one. There are 2 steps, right, which we do. So essentially, we take all your documents, right, the enterprise's documents, and we break them into small chunks, right, and then we actually create embeddings. And don't worry about these terms. So essentially, it's all broken into small words, and then we put it into a vector database. And vector database is like a 3-dimensional, which has all the words. I mean, any OpenAI or any large language model works on embeddings and vector database, and it's magical, and that's the real power. And what we do is, for enterprise, we create a vector database for them. We use some of the best vector databases in Katonic. And once that's done, what we then do is, we, every time a user asks a question, we convert that into those chunks, and then we do a similarity check on that particular vector database, and then we use the power of large language model to give you answer. Now, what it means is that we just use the language capability of the model and not the data capability. So your data, your answer is always factual, and it's very secure because the data never left your organization, right? Now, these large language models can be closed source, or now with advancement, those large language models can be installed on the customer premises itself. So we offer 2 versions. While it sounds very easy, you can build a bot, right? But as the complexity increases, let's say, for example, you build a bot, but then your data is spread across many places. You want to ensure that your bot is accurate, right, and it's up to date. Otherwise, it ends up giving you outdated data, just like the last. So we provide this capability where we have pipelines which can pull data from various sources, do all of the things I told you automatically at a time interval of your choice, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, depending on the use case. and that's a very important. So while this was under the hood and sounds very complicated from a user experience perspective, one of the feedback which we get is it's very, very simple and easy to use. So let's do one thing. Let's try and build one AI chatbot, and probably we will use one of the website. Maybe we can use Katonic website itself, or let me just take a pause. So, Kat, do you have any particular website you have in mind you want to use? We can use that.
No, I am free for you to do something you think might be of interest to the audience.
Let's do the. I know that there's a lot of good work happening in the responsible AI thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a bot on this particular page of Cyro. One of my favorite. In fact, I get a lot of leads from here. So they have a place where all the AI startups and organizations are here. So let's try and build one. So let me uh, just. I think I'll have to stop sharing and share this whole screen again. Yeah, just give me a second. Yeah. Okay, so this is the Katonic generative AI platform built for anyone who wants to really get value and boost their productivity. And if you remember, I talked about a lot of tasks. These are the tasks. This is exactly what we built it for. So let me log in. So once you log in, this is so it's beta. We're still kind of testing and trying to get feedback. So I would be happy for all of you to try. It's a free version. So what I'm showing you is a free version of our platform. Anyone can build and do what we can do. So once you come into the platform, you go and create a project. And what we've done is instead of making it technical, we made it very task specific. So you actually building a task, right? So in this case, we talked about building a chatbot, right, or an AI assistant which can answer anything about. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a chatbot which can answer anything on this particular. There's a Cyros initiative around responsible AI research. So I'm going to build a chatbot on this particular page and see how the whole thing performs. So once you click chat, you just need to create here, and once you create, we give you an option to add all the websites. It's very simple. So in this case, I just go put this URL, add it here. You can upload your documents. You can. So the free version allows 5 URLs and up to 20 MB of data. But of course, if you run out of this, just reach out to us, and we'll ensure that you get a higher this one. This is on Katonic Cloud, and if you want this whole experience on your particular infrastructure, that can be done. So for now, let's go ahead with this. So we'll just use this. So you just click next. And if you remember, I told you about large language models. So there's a lot of open source. We give you the ability. So you can either go and choose yours, or you can bring your own. But if you're into business of doing business, and if you don't want to care about the LLM, just say pick the best. So you let AI pick the best for your use case. But more importantly, ensuring that AI putting the proper guardrails right is important. Ask me anything about responsible. Sorry about the mistakes here. Responsible. It's important to put in the proper guardrails. So what we do is we make it very easy for enterprises to put in the appropriate guardrails depending on the use cases. It is very simple, no coding required. You just do that, and be it internal or external, you can restrict the terms if you have any, and you can really personalize the chatbot. You can say you are a friendly bot, right? So you can just add them in plain English. You absolutely don't need any coding whatsoever. And once you're happy with that, just say next, and then the bot will start training. So what we're doing is all the things I told you. So we are actually taking. So in this case, there's an additional step. We're going to scrape this website, convert them into chunks, create embeddings, create a vector database, and all that has happened. Now, if I click deploy, it will deploy. So this will be done. It will take few seconds for it to deploy. And while that's happening, let me show you the Katonic playground so that we don't spend time waiting for this to happen. So Katonic playground. So like I said, there's a lot of foundation models, and foundation models are not limited to language, right? And while there are hundreds of them, in our opinion, there are only 70 to 80 which are very popular. And what we've done is we've taken all of them and we put it into one place. And it's not a glorified directory as such, but it's a place where you can actually play around with them. So if you look at large language models, Facebook just launched Llama version 2 that's already available here. So you can actually get in here and then you can, what is generative AI. You can actually get in and you can play around with all these large language models for absolutely free. You can even read a little more about these large language models, what they do. We also have provided links to these open source thing. And in the top, we also offer, we give you an idea of what GPU it is required. And A100 GPUs are really expensive GPUs. We have 8 of them, thanks to our partner Google. And what we do is every time a user asks, we swap. There are 70 of them, so we swap them. So if you're looking at something which is not there, it takes a while, but I'll probably skip that and go to another one. So the other favorite of mine is the stable diffusion, which is text to, I can riding a car in Sydney. So this is one of the most popular one. There are a lot of enterprise use cases as well, but it's really interesting to even see. So I hope this is a warm one. So you can put any of the prompt here and you can see those images here. And like I said, we have 70 to 80 of them. So this is astronaut. Okay, it took literally riding. I should have said driving, but yeah, you can see the power of it here. So yeah, 70 of them. Have a look at it. Happy to get feedback. So let's go back to the chatbot. So once you after a few minutes it goes to running, right? And now you can do multiple things. You can actually consume this as an API. So if you're technical, you can consume this as an API. You can integrate this into Microsoft Teams, Facebook, WhatsApp, wherever you want. But if you're like many who are not technical, you can just click chat here. And what we do is we essentially give you a fantastic experience, very similar to some of the OpenAI and Bard experience. But this chatbot is trained on this particular website and it knows only about this. That's it. So let's probably ask a quick question. Let's see. Okay, I can say, how do I contact you, right? Let's see if it's able to answer. How do I contact you? Okay, it's probably not picked that up because it's a clickable thing. So let's ask another question. Responsible. What is responsible AI? Yeah. By the way, this whole thing I showed you is free, and you can, in the next release, you can brand this whole thing for your, look and feel, and you can potentially integrate this. Yeah. So this is responsible AI from that particular website. Let's see if we can ask any particular question which is here. What's the mission? What's the mission of? We can make spelling mistakes, I guess. What's your mission? Hopefully it answers. Yeah. Okay, so look, you can play around. This gives you a fair idea on what the platform is capable. So let me stop sharing for a second. I'm quite curious to hear the feedback from Kat. What do you think of the overall experience? And we just built an application. Data security, hallucination, a lot of risks we talk about can be mitigated with this approach. So what's your thoughts on this? Yeah.
Well, the first thing, Prem, I've got to say is the speed and ease at which it can be done. So that chatbot created sitting on top of a particular website and able to interact within 5 minutes is quite extraordinary. And so that was my first thing, how easy it was to set up with no coding required. So anybody in any enterprise or organization can do it. That's the first thing. But the second thing was just reminded me of the quality of the input is everything, right? So depending on where you're scraping that data or pulling that data source in from, that's it. It's always been it with AI. The data is everything. And so we know CSIRO and the example that you used is perfect. There could be no better organization to to start to query responsible AI, but it will be then for organizations to absolutely make sure whatever database or website they're pulling data from has integrity, is accurate, is up to date. It was just very clear that that is such a
No, absolutely. I agree. Look, what I learned many years back, garbage in, garbage out, that still holds good, fortunately. And see, this is one way of pulling data, right? But more the larger enterprises, typically we connect to their databases directly and we get the data from there. So this is a free version for people to really get a feel, and people, small and medium businesses who have a website and they want to build a chat bot for humans to kind of. But serious, AI cannot be built in 5 minutes. So just want to kind of, break the party or whatever expectations from others. So it requires customization. It requires working with a lot of teams to ensure that, and then there is testing. Takes few weeks to kind of really put something really, enterprise grade, secure, and well tested. And also you need to ensure there are proper pipelines, and it's not giving you inaccurate data or outdated data. It might not be inaccurate, but it might be outdated. So that's where our enterprise grade comes in. But look, what I showed is the free version. I know we're running out of time, but I'll do 2 more use cases, very simple ones. And what we've also done is, because we understand that not everyone really understands this space and they're learning, we are happy for you to come and learn about what generative AI can do using our platform. But we've also, let me just bring that up. Yeah. Okay, you're able to see my application back again? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. So what we've also done is we've created this prompt studio, and which is essentially sample prompts which we offer across various categories. So in this case, extraction, you can analyze contracts, you can extract entities from text, you can do all this classification. So let's take a classification example. Let's say you're an organization, you get a lot of email, and you probably, so just click this. If you click this, you'll see the prompt. So prompt is, so if you remember, I told you that large language models can be told, think of large language models as a genie who's sitting within a lamp, and all you need to do is rub the lamp and say, can you get me food? And it'll get you food. If you say, get me water, it'll get you water. That's exactly what a large language model is. So you can choose your large language model from the drop down here. You can choose the command here. So essentially, this is the place where you're actually putting a command, which is called prompt. And by the way, prompt engineering is a very fancy word, and some of the highest paid engineers are prompt engineers now. But if I have to, just make it simple for you, it's plain English. All you're doing is saying, look, I'm giving you an email. Tell me if it is positive or negative. Rank that email. I'll probably remove the opinion, right? Tell me the profile of the person who sent the email. Right? That's all. You do this. This is where you put your prompt. Come down. There's a place called test where you can put your email. And if you click, essentially whatever you asked for, it is given to you, right? Now you can test further. So what essentially we did, this would have taken a year and $1 million to do. And I have spent more than $1 million for many of the customers and build this. But now we were able to build this in few seconds, right? And if you don't want 1 to 5, you can just change here 1 to 5. And if you click the button, that's the rating. If you so you look, it's basically having conversation in English, and once you're happy, you can save your prompts. Just going to save it, and then if you wondering what to do with this prompts, all you need to do is just get in here, select your task, which was classifying an email. Go here. You can start from scratch, but in our case, we already created a prompt. Go to your prompt, which was the event prompt, which is essentially you can do another round of test. And if you're happy, you want to convert this into an application, right? Classify. You can convert this into an application, or you can convert this into an API. This will take a few seconds. While that's happening, I'll just go back to the prompt studio. One of the company, I think we can talk about the use cases. So one of the startup or scale up, it says, look, if you want to pay your invoice, send it to us. We'll make a payment and you can pay us in 4 installments. Fantastic. But then the problem is they get 40,000 invoices and each one of them look different. So you can use an extraction where you can say, look, I'm going to give you you can say extract the BSB account number, right, from the invoice, right? And then you can say, give it to me in JSON file, because what I want to do is I want to use that to make a payment using a bank gateway, right? So if you do, so it's so simple. You just type that there, right, and you can come down, and then you can just test it, and it will create for you. It might not find BSB. It didn't find. Let's just 101. Yeah, and then just click it. It's beautiful, right? I mean, and then you can just convert that into an API. And let me just go back. So the Classify API is ready. You can consume the API and integrate it. But more importantly, like I said, we cater to small and medium businesses who might not have IT team. So you just build yourself an application. And we have a recruitment company. What they do is they essentially they've written a prompt to extract certain key information from the resumes, put it into a CSV file, right? They get 500 of them. Now all that is converted into an Excel, and they're saving a lot of time. So you can just put your email here and get the classification, or you can upload all your emails here and get a CSV file with the classification. So
fantastic.
So now what we're doing is, putting the power of generative AI, and depending on the use case, classification, there could be a bias because the large language model, but then you wouldn't be using it for mission critical things, right? You're just classifying an email. So for one of the healthcare company, aged care, we wanted to take the emails from the aged people and then classify if it's a care related, is it a food related, and that way you're actually saving a lot of time and making the care better, right? So look, generative AI is very powerful. It can do a lot of good, and that's the theme. And of course, we make it possible. There are broader risks around regulatory. I'm sure people like you will influence it and ensure that that's taken care. So just want to hear your thoughts. I think we built 3 use cases in like 5 minutes. So keen to hear your thought, Kat. Yeah.
So yeah, it really is the speed and the ease, Prem, that I'm impressed with. And then I understand that that's a publicly available one. And with enterprise, you'll be using internal data, and so the security, etc., and the governance that we like to see would be more involved. But as you said, it's not $1 million, and it's not taking 6 to 12 months to build. And I think that productivity boost, and I usually use a 30% productivity boost. You've said 40%. So to me, at this stage, that's the value that this brings. So thank you very much for sharing.
Absolutely. And we feel that the future is about on-demand applications. So, it's seasonal. So you're recruiting, you don't recruit all the time, right? You recruit once in a year, twice a year. So when you're recruiting, you get 500 profiles. You don't want to be wasting your time going through them. Just build an application, upload them, get an Excel. In fact, we are taking away bias, because usually when we've been recruiting, you're either biased with the resumes which come in the beginning or the resumes come in the end. Right now, this gives a fair chance for everyone. So look, generative AI can help take away a lot of bigger problems which are already existing. And on-demand generative AI application. So you build something, use it, destroy it. That's again environmentally impactful. So once I delete it, all the compute is released. So we're also doing our part from an environment perspective. So look, it was good. I absolutely enjoyed it. And Kat, I'm glad. I know we ran out of time, but we'll take this conversation offline. Absolutely a pleasure being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prem, and thank you, Kat. I think it's fantastic how companies like yours, Prem, is actually taking in responsible AI, making sure that you're using and taking into account all of that as well. So that's fantastic to see, and I'm sure, Kat, that's fantastic for you as well to see, particularly in Australia. So thank you both of you for joining us. Thank you everyone here that was listening in as well. Hopefully that's been insightful. And if you want to get in contact with either Prem or Kat, I'm sure there are different ways, so it'll all be put up here. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you, Kat, for your time. Yeah.
Thanks, Prem. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.